Hey everyone, welcome back. Up until now, most of my interviews and discussions with the GTL community have been with people either in Canada or the United States. That includes Canadians living at home, Canadians who used to live in the US and eventually decided to come back to Canada, and even US citizens who have chosen to leave the chaos and move away from the United States altogether. But today's interview, though, comes from a different point of view. We're going to be hearing from one of our viewers from Hong Kong, a Canadian who's been living overseas for many years. He's going to share his thoughts on what's going on with our dysfunctional neighbor. He'll also provide us with some insights on how people in Hong Kong are starting to view the United States differently. So that's what we'll get into today's episode. Before we start, I want to quickly mention today's backdrop. It's another photo from Doug, who took this photo from Mount Rondell in Banff National Park. I know I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but don't take for granted the natural beauty that we have across Canada. Doug's photo is a perfect reminder of that. So thanks, Doug, for sending this in. Okay, let's get started with my conversation with our fellow Canadian, who I will be referring to as Kay. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Thank you very much for meeting me, and I want to just thank you for supporting my channel. And I really wanted to talk to you because you've been following my channel for a while, and you have reached out to me a few times, and we've been talking offline. And you are a Canadian that is living overseas, and
That's correct,
um,
yes.
yeah, so I wanted maybe to start off. Can you give the audience a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. Okay, so my name is Kay. Originally, I'm from Vancouver, just like yourself.
Mhm.
I moved over to Asia in 2003, been working here for 20 plus years now. I
Mhm.
spent the first half of my time in mainland China, so I got to watch that country opening up, the culture change, not only within the people, but within society as well. I moved to Hong Kong in 2012, and I've been here for all the fun events for the past 10 years that people
Nice.
will have witnessed in here between, protests and demonstrations. And
Right.
it's been great having a front seat to all these history making events in Asia.
You were in Hong Kong, and I guess you
Yeah.
were there to kind of see what happened with the protests. What year did the protests happen? I think it was 2019, was it?
Yeah, the really big protests were in 2019. We had Occupy movements, just like Occupy Wall Street before
Hmm.
that, which were in itself quite staggering to see because the streets were literally occupied.
Hmm.
You couldn't go down certain areas because with the streets being blocked, cars couldn't get through, buses couldn't get through, trams couldn't get through. But the really big ones in 2019, they were happening about a block from where I live. So I had the front door to it all.
Oh wow, okay. You literally had a front row seat to everything, then I guess.
Yeah, I could sit on my rooftop and watch what was happening.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to really ask you, I mean, you're
Mhm,
Canadian living overseas in
mhm.
Asia, and I think you and I we're in the same position right now. What are your thoughts right now of everything unfolding with Canada and the United States? I mean, Canada, Vancouver's your home, and
Mhm.
you're seeing what's the relationship with the U.S. deteriorate day by day. What are your thoughts on what's going on back home?
When I look at it from like just a Canadian perspective, it's something that I've seen coming for a while. I think back to before 9/11, even friends and I would go across the border and you would get this uneasy feeling like, oh, they're Canadian, they're coming across, but what are their real motives? CBP, even back then, they were very cautious, very suspicious of people. And I think part of it is it's the exceptionalism that the US has always shown. We would have learned in school, you and I, 50 for 40 or die, things like that. That's never really gone away from
Mhm.
the culture that I witnessed. Now, whether people will disagree with me, that's fine, but that's what I've always witnessed firsthand.
Mhm.
Moving overseas, particularly to Asia, there's always been that promotion of the US through films and television as the great place to live, the great place to visit.
Right.
Excuse me. And yeah, for a long time that's been people's dream. Like, I'm gonna move to the US, I'm gonna build this great life. But in the last year in particular, it's been shattered because people are starting to see the shift in culture. They're starting to see the open racism. They're starting to see the open hostility towards foreigners
Hmm.
that is on display.
Yeah.
And in Hong Kong, particularly, and I can speak as well for China because I do go there quite regularly. People are starting to say, maybe that's not the place we want to go. A lot of my friends, they look again at Canada. Vancouver has always been a city where people from Hong Kong will go. It's
Right.
always been that second home for a lot of people. That's starting to come back. There's a lot more interest in Vancouver and in particular the Lower Mainland.
Mhm.
So we will see a lot more immigration there from here as people want to get away.
What you just mentioned about how film, TV, entertainment, and stuff,
Mhm,
has an influence on Asia. And I'm just recalling from my first stint away from Canada, when I moved away, and
mhm.
this was before COVID. What I found is that where I was located, they did not know too much about North America, right? I mean, what they know about North America, they see from TV and movies and whatever else, right? The first thing I was asked is, are you from the U.S., right? And
Yeah.
it's understandable, right? Because my accent and our accent can be mistaken for a U.S. accent, right? And
Mhm.
to be fair, most people in Asia I found really could not tell the difference between a Canadian accent versus a U.S. accent. So I was always asked, are you from the United States? And I said, no, I'm actually from Canada, right? So I kind of had to educate them a little bit on, what the differences are between Canada and the U.S. But I have noticed lately, just through the contacts, I've only been here about maybe 2 months now, but I do talk to quite a few people in Malaysia, and the tone is definitely a little bit more different than what I found before on my first stint. Whereas people are saying now, first they do ask me, are you from the United States? And I say, no, I'm not. I'm actually from Canada. And it's almost a little bit of a relief when I say that I am from Canada,
Yeah.
because what I notice is that the second I say, "Oh, no, 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 I'm from Canada," they say, "Oh, okay, okay, so you're Trump is not your president." I'm like, "No, no, he's not, right?" But it's a little bit of a relief because I find that even in Malaysia here, people are a little bit more tense when it comes to anything a little bit, dealing with the United States. I can kind of relate to what you just said, and when you mentioned that, it's people are starting to shy away from the U.S. being like a dream destination to go to, right?
Mhm.
And even some of my colleagues that I do work with and the partners, I asked them, it's like, would you ever go to the United States? And they're like, in the past, maybe, but with everything going on right now, they've decided no, we it's not safe for us to go because obviously people in Malaysia they're people of color, so they're worried about that. And I would assume that would probably be the same assumption in Hong Kong too, is that people being Chinese primarily, they're worried about crossing into the US because of, obviously what might happen at the border. So is that a same or is that a safe assumption for Hong Kong as well?
Yeah, it's talking to friends of mine and I and some colleagues. They do mention racism. They do mention discrimination because Hong Kong as a society is very mixed, just
Right.
like you'll see in KL or in Singapore,
Uh,
where people come from all different backgrounds and everyone blends together. I mean,
mhm.
you do get some people that have slightly racist views, like, oh, I don't want to talk to these people or whatever,
Yeah.
but it tends to be a lot more accepting. So when they see the openness of racism in other countries, they'll be like, well, that's not for me. I don't want to go there because maybe in a family you might have a husband who's Chinese, you might have a wife who's Thai, or you might have a wife who's Caucasian and a husband who is African. So
Mhm.
they like African, not African American, but
Yeah.
you get these mixtures of all these families, and they don't want to go over there
Yeah.
because they don't know what will happen.
Yeah. That
So
actually,
it's frightening.
yeah, I just got an email a little while ago from somebody who she mentioned that she's Caucasian and
Mhm.
that her husband is African. And They're from Europe, and they mentioned that they always wanted to visit the US, but obviously with the political turmoil and everything going on, she was more worried for her husband going
Mhm,
over. So it's definitely something that globally people are worried about when it comes to what race they are, right? And
mhm.
where they're from. So
Yeah, it's definitely perked up ears here, and
yeah.
people are starting to turn away. Uh, I have a colleague, well, former colleague, who works for
Mhm.
Cathay now, and she said the U.S. flights are starting to slowly empty out. You're seeing fewer passengers on normally full flights, so there is a slow trickle of
Right.
people not going to the U.S. It's something you will see gradually because Hong Kong being such a travel culture, people
Mhm.
do have to travel, but they are choosing now different destinations. You're seeing more into Europe, more into Canada. Southeast Asia has always been a popular destination because we're fortunate we can go for a weekend trip. We could go to Singapore for a weekend. We can go to Japan for a weekend.
Right.
But the long haul trips, you're starting to see a shift
Mhm.
towards Europe, towards the Middle East.
Right. So the flights to the US, I mean, I've done reports on the past. The flights definitely from Europe to the US are going down. Canada to the
Mhm.
US are going down as well. But
Yeah.
I haven't really heard too much on the Asia side. So, I mean, it's good to hear that the flights to Asia or the flights from Asia to
Mhm.
the United States are starting to empty out.
Yeah, it's not drastic like
Hmm.
Canada or the Europe, but it's a slow trickle effect because I mean Hong Kong only has 8 million people,
Right.
so it it doesn't show as much,
Hmm.
but it does show a pattern.
So the next question I have, I mean, and I'm
Mm.
curious about this more specifically within Hong Kong and even
Mhm.
China. I mean, you've kind of touched on it a little bit already, but are you noticing an attitude change when it comes to maybe U.S. products, or are they boycotting like what Canada and the rest of the world are doing at the moment?
In terms of like supermarkets,
Hmm.
I'm seeing fewer US products on the shelves. I think shops are making a twofold decision. One is they're listening to customers saying they don't want the products the same. And the
Hmm.
other is they're responding to the costs. You get customers making the conscious decision, but then you're also getting customers saying, well, those are too expensive, so I'm not going to buy them. So you get that approach.
Right.
You're also seeing less business at US restaurants. I mean, it's weird to say, but McDonald's is actually a good indicator in Hong Kong, and you're actually
Mhm.
seeing them becoming less busy
Interesting.
because for years with our work culture here,
Mhm.
it's lunch is very short. You go in, you grab your food, you get out, you go back to work, you go back to your offices. McDonald's was always packed with people getting takeout orders.
Mhm.
It's actually getting less and less. You're starting to see a lot more traditional tea houses or cha cham tangs
Mhm.
opening up in certain business areas. And they're getting very busy because people are like, well, why am I going to spend my money there when I'm going to
Mhm.
go over here and support the local business now? It
Right.
might be 5 minutes longer wait, but I'm supporting someone who's from here, who's set up a business here. And I'm not going to support the US custom.
It's good to know that the movement that we have in Canada as well as Europe and Australia, it's also happening here in Asia as well. For me, I've only been in KL for about 2 months now, and I am no. I mean, I'm starting to learn the U.S. I'm starting to notice that some of the U.S. based businesses here, like Starbucks and even McDonald's, the locals here are boycotting those businesses, but it's for a different reason, more on the protest against towards Israel and Gaza. So
Mm,
it's it's happening here as well because I mean I can go to a Starbucks and I can get first in line, which is
mm.
you know it doesn't really happen back in Vancouver, right? So
No, definitely not.
yeah, so there's a Starbucks downstairs from my place, and if I want to go there, I can just get first in line. But if I go
Mm,
to a local coffee shop here or an Asia branded coffee shop, I'm waiting like four, five, six people in line, right? So
mhm.
that's not, I mean, it might be a somewhat of an indicator, but I do know there is a movement or there is a boycott against the U.S. businesses here in Asia as well. So
Well, when you mentioned Starbucks here, Starbucks isn't as busy as it used to be in terms of products selling, but they're busy in terms of people occupying seats.
Yeah.
So if you go into a Starbucks or you go walk past it and you look at the customers sitting there, I would say about 75% of them are high school students and they're private tutors. So they're just occupying a comfortable seat and going through homework. The other 25% might actually be a customer.
Yeah. So the actual customer base, people buying is actually low, but people sitting inside or just hanging out are quite high then.
Yeah. So if you look at it, they look busy.
Yeah.
But then you look at the staff, they've got very little to do because there's no customer sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of the silent protest here.
Yeah, it's definitely different because I mean, I remember when I was living downtown in Yaletown, I used to always go to the Starbucks at in Yaletown Park, and there'd always be a line, and I'd be kind of hoping it'd be go faster because I would need to get to work, right? I mean, this is before the whole Trump thing started, but it kind of shocks me how fast I can get it here. And that tells me that okay, the protests and the boycotts, they're happening in Malaysia as well. So, but again, like I said, I think Malaysia's is for different reasons for boycotting U.S. businesses, but it's still happening here. So
Yeah, I used to have the same when I would go to the Starbucks at Robson and Thurlow. That's where I used to go, and sometimes the line would be right out the door.
Yeah. So a question I have for you. I mean, you've been away for quite a bit longer than I have, right? And so I wanted to ask, like, living abroad, is there anything that you might notice that many Canadians living back home, because the Canadians back home, we were living on the front line. I consider myself living on the front line because I was there. But is there anything that you would notice, or anything that living abroad that you would notice that maybe Canadians on the front line might not notice when it comes to the U.S., of course, or the next door neighbor?
We get the news we get over here regarding what's happening in the U.S. I find it a lot more. I want to say neutral, but it's a lot more anti-government messaging, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I noticed, like with CTV specifically, they have a very pronounced lean towards the right.
Yeah.
Whereas here, I'll use Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Singapore as examples. The media outlets, yes, they have biases in each one of those cities, but when they're reporting on international events like that, they tend to be very neutral. They want to present it in a way where they are leaving it up to you to decide what to think. When I see your videos and when I see other clips from different outlets, from Canada, from the US, you can feel the bias in them. And what the people here are getting and what we absorb is, here it is in its raw form. Take it and you decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
Because you see governments here not wanting to take a side openly. They want the people to decide and then the government will follow.
Right.
So you look at Japan and their new prime minister. She's a staunch conservative, but she's also, I mean, she's put her foot in it a few times with China, but she's also not openly saying, don't go to the US, don't do that.
Right.
She's letting the people decide what they want to do, which is a great approach.
Yeah, which is what I wish Canada would do that as well with the media. So
yeah. It would be great if our media was not controlled primarily by one or two groups of people. If we had a more free, open press.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the basis of my channel as well. It also applies to the U.S. media too. Is that they're, I mean, obviously you have the Fox News and things like that, and even CTV is being very questionable these days. But I wish they would leave the reports and give the data that is true and factual instead of trying to lean it towards one way. But then again, if they did, then I probably wouldn't have a channel. So
that's true too.
It seems like, I mean, this is just me talking to colleagues and partners and things that I'm associating with here in Malaysia, but it seems like they're more on top of in terms of their opinion is and not being driven by the media, right? So that
Mm.
they're not saying, well, the media is saying this or that, but instead they're saying, well, the media told this, and my decision on that is this, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you've mentioned that. So
Another great motivator here, and I can only speak for Hong Kong on this, is how connected everyone is here through social media. So there is a
mhm,
heavy ingestion of social media here.
yeah,
So you get all of these unfiltered reports coming in, like look at this video, look at these photos, and it spreads fast here
right,
because everyone here is glued to their phones.
yep,
It's amazing. Like you can walk down the street and look at the crowd, and maybe half of them are walking with their phone up. So they're watching the screen while they're walking, and they're just going through videos, articles, just a rapid fire succession, absorbing it all. And I mean, as someone who's not into social media heavily, it just amazes me how fast the information is absorbed.
yeah. I mean, it happens here as well in Malaysia, and
Mhm,
I know it happens in Singapore as well. And when it comes to getting your news, it doesn't come from like the national news outlets. It comes from social media, right? And
yeah.
for me, when with the fire that happened in Hong Kong,
Oh
and
yeah.
I hope everyone's okay, but I didn't find out about it through the news. I found out about it through the local social medias and stuff, right? So it
Hmm.
spreads really fast, and I find it's more high paced than what we would have in North America.
Hmm.
And when something happens, like the second that it happens, right? So,
Yeah, and the one downside, and we experienced that with the fire you mentioned,
mhm,
was the misinformation that spread very quickly afterwards.
yeah, yeah,
There were so many people as soon as that happened, they were screaming, "It's the bamboo! It's the bamboo! It's this, it's that." It's like, give it a minute. Let the
mhm,
fire department deal with the situation. Let them handle their business. Let them rescue the people,
yeah,
then start looking for blame. Don't just
yeah,
start screaming blame and then
yeah,
nothing happens,
right,
because that was devastating. I mean, we, and I say this as now a Hong Konger, because I hold PR here.
mhm,
It's something we've never experienced before.
yeah,
Our city has been very, very safe. The last time we had a disaster like that was in the 60s.
mhm,
So it brought the city together very
yeah,
quickly, because everyone was trying very hard, not just to raise money to donate supplies. People
mhm,
were offering beds, they were offering cots. Like, hey, I can take some people into my place. Come here if you don't have family.
mhm.
So it really brought us all together very quickly.
Kind of reminds me of the whole situation with 9/11 and how Canada
Mm,
came together for all with all the stranded planes, right? So
yeah.
yeah, it's good that it happened.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, I mean, that's what I immediately thought of was Gander, and
Yeah,
how Canada just opened up and went right, like, come on in, come on in. People
yeah,
here were doing the same, because Canada and Hong Kong are similar in that way. The the
mhm,
the community just jumps to it and gets going, and it's like people first. How do we do this? How do we do that? How can we help?
yeah,
It's not people are going out, you have to help. It's the opposite, and it
yeah.
was beautiful to see.
The next question I have, I mean, this is more of a channel thing that I've experienced, right? And
Mm,
ever since I announced my move, people online on my in my comments are suggesting that Canadians who live abroad don't really have a right to comment on what's going on back home. And I've had some people call me a traitor, and
yeah,
saying that
yeah.
I'm not a full Canadian or I'm a part-time Canadian, right? You're in the same situation. What do you think about that when you see comments like that, or when you hear comments
I
like that?
Oh my goodness, I've been hearing comments like that for a decade now.
Yeah.
And it's part of it is ignorance. Part
Hmm.
of it is I don't want to say stupidity, but it feels like that. Like, how can you claim someone is not, a Canadian or an American or a French because you live overseas?
Yeah.
I always look at it as you carry your country, you carry your culture, you carry it with you in your heart. So no matter where you go, you're an ambassador for that country. You represent who we are, and I say we as Canadians, who we are by your actions, by your words. To say that we're not real Canadians, or we're half Canadians, it's just foolish. It really, really is. And I mean, I don't know if you think back to it. I can actually trace back to when this all started. This whole idea of you're not a real Canadian. I mean, from my perspective, it started back in, I think it was 2014, 2015, when they tried introducing the voter protection bill, and they tried to take away voting rights from expat Canadians. There was a lot of rhetoric at that time when it was, people who live overseas, they shouldn't vote because they're not real Canadians.
Yeah.
And my family back home, they would have conversations with friends and that, and occasionally there would be a comment like, "Oh, well, your son is abroad. He's not really Canadian. He shouldn't be doing this. He shouldn't be doing that." And my parents or my sister or whoever would say, "Well, that's not true. He votes overseas, and I voted in every election,
right,
since moving overseas." I mean, yes, it's a process because you have to go through your consulate or your embassy, whichever is closer, but I still do it because it's my duty as a Canadian to help elect my government. So it's not, it's one of these things where people are just being blind.
Yeah, because I've never experienced. I mean, I didn't experience them during my first leave and my first stint away. But obviously, with this channel, I'm more in the public, being that I'm overseas, right? So I might have to talk to you about this offline and see, right? Because I mean, it's something new to me. For me, I feel, to be honest, I mean, with my channel now and me being overseas, I feel more Canadian now than I did when I was living in Vancouver, right? I mean, it ties me to the country that I'm from, and I'm just learning. I'm still learning. I mean, I'm not afraid to admit I'm learning to try to see how to deal with it, right? So,
it's a piece of advice that I always gave fellow expats, not just Canadian, but from other countries as well. I would always tell them, because usually in places like China, the expat communities get quite tight because there's only a few of us. I would always say, you're representing your country, so embrace it.
Yeah,
Don't just act out, but be the best that you can be and show the world what we are.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing now. I mean, when I'm with my colleagues and coworkers in the lunchroom, I'm talking about Canada. They're interested. I'm kind of telling them, and really the basics that I'm telling them, right? The differences between Canada and the U.S. How we are different, how Canada perceived different around the world, and things like that. So I take it as more of an education thing, and getting at least my circle of people that I speak with, more educated on Canada, right? So.
It's amazing the preconceptions that people have, because Canada and the US being so close, everyone just assumes we're the same.
Yeah.
And I'll use the example here, I will say, is Hong Kong and China the same culturally? And people will go, "Oh yeah, that's right. You're not the same." And then they start to see the small differences that they can pick out beyond language, beyond food. It's the attitudes. It's the how we look at problems, how we socialize.
Yeah, I think you said it right. I mean, I consider myself an ambassador for Canada now, even though I'm just a regular average citizen, right? So
yeah.
One of the last questions I have for you. I mean, you've been gone a lot longer than I have, but what is the biggest thing you miss about being in Canada? I mean, I know you mentioned coffee, Chris, which I brought myself a massive bag over. But what for you? Like, what is the biggest thing that you miss being from Canada?
Well, I'll be very Vancouver centric with this. So if anyone's not from Vancouver, they might not get this. For me, it's the cold mornings when you wake up and it's frosty outside. You get that crisp air in the morning when you open up the door, open up the window. It's the crush of the transit. For some reason, I miss that. Like when you're taking SkyTrain and everyone's just crushed in. I actually miss that. It's weird to say that because taking the MTR in Hong Kong gets as busy, but it's a different kind of a feeling,
Right.
Here, everyone's just droning and go to work, whereas in Vancouver, it's just like, this guy's going to work, this person's going to go shopping, this person's going to that. So that everyone's got their own little thing, and you can see it.
Mhm.
It's the snack food. It's the things like the Costco crisps. It's the old Dutch ketchup chips. It's things like that. So
Mhm.
it's those little things that you take for granted when you're living at home, and you get overseas, and it's like, well, it'd be nice to just pop down to 7-Eleven and get some ketchup chips.
Yeah. Yeah, I brought a box of Old Dutch ketchup chips with me, and I haven't opened them yet. I'm saving them. So, but I know I can totally understand what you mean by that. And for me, it's really the seawall. Being
Yeah.
that I used to live downtown, I had the seawall literally like a 5-minute walk from my place, and
Yeah.
I appreciated it. But I think when you're overseas, and especially with KL being inland, I don't
Hmm.
have like a seawall to walk around anymore, right? So I don't have a
Yeah.
Stanley Park to walk around. So,
Yeah.
but that's definitely what I miss the most.
Yeah, for me, I lived right near a waterfront.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I could just walk down to Canada Place and chill out there and look at the inlet, look at the harbor,
Yeah,
watch the seaplanes coming in and out. So I miss things like that as well. I mean, I've got Victoria Harbor
mhm,
5 minutes away from me.
yeah,
So I still have a harbor view, but it's a very different harbor because
yeah,
it's tall buildings, it's bright lights, it's not the same. It's not mountains, it's not the lions, it's not that nice calmness that
yeah,
we get in Vancouver. So
yeah.
I miss things like that as well. But I look at it thinking, yeah, this is a different view, but it's just as cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm already starting to plan my trip back home, which hopefully might be in about May or June. So I'm looking forward
Mhm.
to that. And I remember from my first stint away, every time I came home, it just meant more to me to get into YVR and leave the departures, right? Or to leave the arrivals area. So,
Yeah, you come in and you got that green arrival hall with the totem poles, and
yep.
you're like, "Yep, I'm home."
Yep, exactly. So yeah, I guess in closing, I mean, is there
Mm.
anything else you would like to mention to your fellow Canadians and people listening right now?
I remember one comment that was on one of the videos. It really struck a chord with me. Someone had said they were gonna throw their passport away,
Yeah,
and I said to myself, "Never do that."
yeah,
Canadians, we are so privileged in that our passport is widely accepted everywhere you go. Take up your passport, travel around the world if you don't want to, if you tire of domestic travel. Go to different countries, go to new places, have new experiences, try new foods, meet new peoples. Travel really is the greatest gift you can give yourself. It's mind expanding. It sounds corny, but it really is. It's mind expanding. You will experience new things that you never imagined.
hmm,
Try new foods. It's different from looking at pictures online.
yep, for
I mean,
sure.
you can look at a picture of a dish and say, "Oh, that looks great. I want to try that." Well, try it. Go, go
Yep,
to Thailand. Go to Africa. Go to India. Go to Europe. Go anywhere. Just expand yourself and be the best Canadian you can be.
yep. All right. Well, I want to thank you very much, Kay. And I do hope that the listeners or the people watching right now do get a different perspective when it comes to what's going on from home from an Asia perspective. And,
Mhm.
I actually learned a lot. I honestly did not know what the sentiment was in Hong Kong when it came to the US and what's going on right now. But you helped to kind of clarify that at least Hong Kong is feeling the same as what much of the world is right now. So.
Well, you're very welcome for that.
All right. Well, stay on the line, and we'll continue our chat because I'm kind of interested in a few things more specific on Hong Kong. But I
Sure.
want to thank you very much, Kay, for your time, and I'll be happy to have you back on the channel again.
Definitely. Sounds great.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.